first speaker is Constant Bonard. He's going to talk about super semantics, pragmatics, and the meaning of non-verbal emotion expression. Okay.
Thank you very much. So, the claim that I'm going to make is that a super semantics and a super pragmatics may be developed for nonverbal emotion expression. And by super semantics and super pragmatics, I mean extended semantics or pragmatics. I mean adapting their tools to a broader scope. So super is as in superset or supersonic or supernary, not as in superior or superman, right? The plan is to give an argument for one and an argument for two. It will be an overview, really, rather than a detailed argumentation, since I only have 15 minutes and a lot to say. But hopefully, those of you who know little about the subject will follow me, and I'm sorry for the others. So the argument for one is the following. If a sign system is not analyzable through regular semantics, but is truth star conditional, a super semantics may be developed for it. And by truth star conditional, I mean that the sign system is evaluable for its semantic fitness or accurateness or correctness, even though we might not use the word truth literally for this sign system. And the second claim is that nonverbal emotion expressions are not analyzable through regular semantics, but are truth star conditional sign systems. That is, we might not use the word truth for an emotional expression, but we can still evaluate it for its semantical fitness. And the conclusion then is that the super semantics may be developed for nonverbal emotion expressions. Okay, so the first premise, I divided in two parts. First is that a sign system is not analyzable if a sign system is not analyzable through regular semantics. Sorry. Let me start again. Consider the following. Paralinguistic gestures, iconicity in speech and sign language, animal communication, pictorial representations, music, dance. In all of these sign systems, none of these sign systems are analyzable or subjected to the principle of compositionality, nor are they subjected to logical rules and aren't, strictly speaking, truth conditional. And that's why these sign systems are not analyzable through a regular semantics. However, arguably, in all of them, to know the meaning of a sign in these systems is to know, at least under what conditions it is true star. Under what condition it is semantically fit. So for instance, to know the meaning of a picture is to know at least what this picture is an accurate representation of. And this allows developing a super semantics for this sign system. That's what Philip Schenker has argued in a series of papers, and in particular, what is a super semantics. So that's in defense of the first premise of the argument. The second premise is that nonverbal emotion expressions are not analyzable through regular semantics, but are nevertheless truth conditional sign systems, truth star conditional sign systems. They are not analyzable through regular semantics because they are not subjected to logical inferences and the principle of compositionality. However, they are evaluable as semantically fit or unfit in virtue of emotions' correctness conditions. And by that, I mean danger for fear, offensiveness for anger, irrevocable loss for sadness, and so on and so forth. This is an idea that has been developed and advocated by many philosophers since Aristotle on, basically. And to make it a little more intuitive, I will illustrate it with the following example. If you are afraid of a chihuahua on a leash on the other side of the street, then somehow your fear is not correct. It is not appropriate to the situation. It is not an appropriate reaction to the world, or perhaps it doesn't represent the world accurately. Cases of phobias are typically cases of emotions where the correctness conditions are not fulfilled. It is also an idea that has been quite popular in psychology. And this idea, I think, can lead us to define something like expressive truth star, which would be the following. And here I am not entirely sure that it is the good definition at all, because it's very new, and if you have suggestions here, that would be very welcome. The idea would be that the expression X of an emotion can be said to be expressively true or semantically fit when it is about something that exemplifies the emotion's correctness condition. So, as an example, Paul's face here expresses fear. Fear has as correctness condition danger for Paul, things that are dangerous for Paul. And these are exemplified or instantiated in many events or objects, like a tiger approaching, somebody pointing a gun at him, etc. And this set of things would be the truth star conditions for Paul's expressive face. So we could say that the meaning of Paul's face is to be found, at least in part, in this set of things that would make his face true star, if you like. Take another example, Sarah's laughter. Laughter is much more ambiguous than the expression of fear that I've displayed before, because it could express amusement or embarrassment or relief or mockery or other types of affects. And these have as correctness conditions the comic or the embarrassing or the release of tension or other types of correctness conditions for Sarah. And those are exemplified in various different events and objects. And these are the truth conditions for Sarah's laughter. Okay. Now, this idea can be developed thanks, it can be deepened and elaborated thanks to all the research that has been done in cognitive sciences about what emotion expressions express. That was just to mention that. We have a whole set of data to explore here that would be useful. So the conclusion of the first argument is that, therefore, a supersemantics may be developed for emotion expressions. Now let's go on the second argument, which is about superpragmatics of emotion expressions. Okay, here it goes. If the supersemantics of assigned systems underdetermines its meaning, but its meaning is not analyzable through regular pragmatics, then we should try to develop a superpragmatics for it. Nonverbal emotion expressions are not analyzable through regular pragmatics, but their semantics underdetermines their meaning. Therefore, we should try to develop a superpragmatics for nonverbal emotion expressions. Okay. To illustrate and defend somewhat the first premise, let me discuss the case of music briefly. So, the supersemantics of music underdetermines its meaning. What does that mean? Well, the semantics or the supersemantics of music is about string of notes, strings of sounds. And we can imagine that in two different situations, the same string of sounds doesn't mean the same thing. So you know the famous cover by Jimi Hendrix of the American national anthem in Woodstock. And through this piece of music, he managed to express his indignation toward the Vietnamese War. He managed to express his anti-war passion or tons of other emotions, say, and ideas and so on. But we can imagine that the exact same song, the exact same strings of sounds can be played by a pro-war nationalist, South guitarist depicted here in a pro-war nationalist festival, where, thanks to the context, he could express things that are completely different, that are completely opposite to the meaning that we can find in Jimi Hendrix's use of this string of sounds. So the semantics cannot tell us what's different between these two uses of the same sounds. It cannot tell us the whole meaning that is expressed in these two different scenarios. However, music is not analyzable through regular pragmatics. So we cannot use the usual tools that are used in these cases for, that have been developed for language. But we can develop something like the notion of musical implicatures. That's what I do in the article that I quote here. And the idea is that the notion of musical implicature can help us understand how Jimi Hendrix and the Schmendrix nationalist guitarist can express different things with the same sounds. And this shows, this notion of musical implicatures, that a super pragmatics for music might help understanding its meaning. Okay, so that was in defense of the first premise of the second argument. That if the super semantics of a science system underdetermines its meaning, then, but this meaning is not analyzable through regular pragmatics, then we should try to develop a super pragmatics for it. Now, let me illustrate that for emotion expressions, for nonverbal emotion expressions. First, nonverbal emotion expressions usually aren't ostensive. That is, they don't intentionally display an intention to communicate, as you've perhaps understood from yesterday's conference by Dan Sperber. Music, because it is not ostensive, nonverbal emotion expressions, because it is not ostensive, cannot be analyzed through regular pragmatics. It doesn't respect the definitions of speaker meaning or of ostensive inferential communication, etc. So it's not analyzable through regular pragmatics. But the semantics of nonverbal emotion expressions is underdetermined by, underdetermines the meaning of nonverbal emotion expressions. And to illustrate that, let me illustrate it with the following example. David says, you know, I was thinking maybe Sarah Palin is the future of the Republican Party. And Chuck answers just by laughing. Ha 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 ha. David continues, I even think she's got her chances for the next elections. Now, what does Chuck communicate with his laughter? Well, at least one, that he doesn't think Sarah Palin is the future of the Republican Party, and two, that this is a ridiculous idea or a risible idea or something of that sort. Now, these two messages are not accountable by the semantics of laughter, because laughter is a very ambiguous emotional signal. As I said before, it can express embarrassment, can express joy, relief, etc., etc. So we need something else than the semantics of laughter to understand how this laughter is able to express these messages. That's why we need something like a super pragmatics, because regular pragmatics cannot account for these type of cases. Conclusion, we should try to develop a super pragmatics for nonverbal emotion expressions. And I developed this argument in this manuscript that I can send to you if you like. Okay, so here are the two arguments that I've presented, now I open the floor for questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We have 5 minutes for questions. Alexandre, et après Christian.
Yeah, so 2 questions on the notion of semantic fitness with regard to emotions that you developed. The first one is can you correlate it to a notion of psychological or sociological deviance, which is something that is defined as not having the proper, like the fit reaction to a given situation, or an improper reaction would be like tantamount to saying that you are, in some sense, emotionally, semantically deviant? And second question is, does it hold with negation, in the sense, like, as you said, Paul expressing fear by having a gun pointed at his head? You could say that Paul not expressing fear while having a gun pointed to his head would be like unfit semantically.
Thank you. So first question, there are many ways in which emotions can be said to be fit or unfit. So in philosophy we distinguish moral fitness from pragmatic fitness, from evolutionary fitness, from semantic fitness, and all of these are slightly different, although they might be similar. So to give an example, if there are wolves around you, maybe it's not a good idea to be afraid because they can smell your fear, and if they smell your fear, they're going to attack you. So it wouldn't be pragmatically fit. I don't know if it's a true story, but let's imagine it is. It wouldn't be pragmatically fit to react with fear, although it would be semantically fit in the sense that they instantiate the object, the formal object, as we say, of anger, the correctness condition, of fear, which is danger. So how do we determine this correctness condition? This is a very controversial question in philosophy, and it's not about what is socially fit or not. It's really about how emotions represent the world and react to the world, and whether there is a preservation of the information that is in the world that gets represented accurately in the mind. I would say, although that is very vague, but hopefully that answered a little bit your question, your first question. The second question was about the negation of expressive signals. Well, yeah, I think that would make sense to go into this direction. I haven't really thought about it, but yeah, surely, like if somebody, make a joke and you don't laugh, you simply convey something by not laughing, etc. for other types of situations. So yeah, I think it would make sense. I don't know exactly how it would work though.
Okay, thank you. Christian?
Yes, I have also two questions. The first is about the non-compositionality of nonverbal expression.
Mm-hmm.
I am not sure that it's easy to demonstrate that nonverbal expression don't adhere to non-compositionality.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of them do adhere, some don't adhere, but I don't think that it's possible to easily generalize
Right,
the
okay.
non-adherence principle. The second question is about the pragma. To which extent is your pragma, your super pragma, able to actually predict in which situation the proper semantic has to be applied?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
The proper super semantic could be applied, for example.
Sorry. Can you repeat the second question? I didn't understand.
If you think about the pragmatics,
Yeah.
To which extent are you able, or is it possible, to predict
Mm-hmm.
which is the proper one in a specific situation?
Okay. Concerning the first question, maybe I didn't formulate my ideas unambiguously, but what I meant is that it is not the case that all emotion expressions are subjected to the principle of compositionality, nonverbal emotion expressions. And by that, I mean that they are not structured through these, through the same principles that in verbal expression. There is no subject and predicate in a laughter, for instance, or you cannot take different parts of a laughter and say that they compose into, a structured, syntactically structured meaning or something of that sort. But I would be interested if you have examples of nonverbal emotion expressions that respect the principle of compositionality.
We can discuss about this. It does not need to have a subject-object predicate.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah.
Exactly. A complex concept is made by composition. So you take two concepts, you build a complex concept.
Yeah, but I'm not sure
so
that...
you could have a complex emotion type expression composed by two basic expressions of emotion. So I think that it's the direction you infer.
But I don't think that emotion are conceptual really, or are not necessarily conceptual anyway. As many examples illustrate, yeah. So I don't think it's the same kind of representation that they... Yeah.
But if you think about nonverbal emotion
Mhm.
You have eyes, you have,
Oh, okay.
you could
Yeah.
express, you could add up,
Yep.
connect,
Yep.
you could do composition with
Mhm.
non-verbal expression.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I perfectly agree with this claim. So, and for instance, like Klaus Scherer and his team here, they've tried to analyze facial expression through discrete elements. So, for instance, frowns, you frown when you play chess, or you frown when you are angry with someone, you know? When you concentrate on a task, you might frown, or when you're angry with someone, you might frown. And in both cases, they would perhaps mean something like, there's a goal inconducive obstacle. You know, there is an obstacle to my goals, but they are different in both cases. So you could, you know, instead of having just the whole face, you could like have a composition of frown plus mouth, or I don't know, things like that. So in this sense, that would be a sort of compositionality on the face. So maybe that answers your question.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we have to stop.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.